Alright, y'all, so today I want to make a very quick video, a sort of David case update video, but also in general, kind of just a my personal thoughts video on this whole entire case and where we're at and kind of a state of things, because the growing mood in the air right now is frustration. A lot of people are frustrated with this case. You know, we're 6 months in, almost 7 months. And there's been no movement on this case, no charges, no indictments. You know, no one's really been arrested. I mean, Neo got arrested only because he didn't want to show up to the grand jury. And then he showed up and spoke for 30 minutes and then he dipped out. And he said, "Peace, y'all. Plead the fifth." And there's just, like I said, I think in general, a lot of people that have been following this case, all the subreddits, Steve Fisher, there's a growing sense of frustration, including myself. It's kind of crazy that we're 6 months in and there's been nothing huge or substantial. It's always been little nuggets of information, little this and that, but nothing huge and substantial. And it's starting to raise a lot of questions. Does the police even have a good enough case? Did they even have strong enough evidence? Was this a botched investigation? Like, was evidence left behind? Who knows? But before I get into my general thoughts on this and kind of also talk about what other people said, I want to give you a little bit of David case updates over the past few weeks that have happened that I didn't make a video on, that I wanted to give you my thoughts on. So yeah, one of the biggest things that happened recently of this case is that the grand jury that's still ongoing, that's still investigating this case, they're trying to get David's family to come and talk about the case and testify in the grand jury. Apparently they subpoenaed them, and they're supposed to go to LA to talk about it. Now, as you all know, David's family was in Texas, pretty far away. And basically what happened was David's family, who I believe his dad's a lawyer, if I remember correctly, they filed some kind of appeal in the Texas courts, I think basically stating some sorts of, well, this is a California problem, this is not this is not Texas, this is not our problem, this is an out-of-state issue, we can't come to something like this. And I think what happened was a Texas judge looked at it. They looked at their sort of legal appeal. I know there's like a different term for it legally, but I just don't know off the top of my head. So I'm just going to call it an appeal. He looked at it and denied it. And from what we understand, there was some kind of online hearing that happened after. And from the looks of it, now I'm not sure, like I'm not really for certain if this is going to happen, but David's family might have to come to the grand jury and testify, whether they like it or not, because you can be like Neo and get arrested for not showing up. And it's going to be really fascinating, and I do think it's really interesting that the grand jury, they're trying to pull David's family into this. Now, for my personal opinions on this, I really don't know how much the family knew. I'm sure they knew quite a bit, and I'm not trying to defend them at all, but I'm just trying to say, for a matter of fact, they lived in Texas, at least his dad and mom did, and I'm not sure how actively tapped in they were to David's personal life or his life in LA, because it's very common for, especially including myself in my history, to hide things from your parents and so on. So I'm not exactly sure, but I'm also not trying to defend them, because they absolutely did know. I mean, they definitely know more than the general public, that's for sure. Now, one figure that I do think knows a lot more than he's letting on is probably David's brother, because there was a video a while back when the whole thing blew up that allegedly showed him and Celeste, the child that sadly passed away, got murdered, together in like a backstage kind of event. So I'm assuming that he knows a lot more than he lets on. And 41 says that they can't bring him in because he's a child. I believe he's 18, so there you have it. But that being said, I find this really fascinating. We're going to see what happens with it. Who knows? Now, another big development that happened was that in the case that they appealed, they tried to not come to the grand jury. The Texas judge denied it. All their paperwork for the appeal got sent out to the public. And we got a lot of really interesting information in this. It kind of confirms a lot of things that people suspected. Now, number one, how the child, rest in peace. The victim died. A lot of people were speculating, oh, she wasn't chopped up or, kind of, you know what I'm saying, like manipulated and stuff like that. It was just natural decay. Well, this kind of confirms she indeed was chopped up. There was definitely an effort to hide the body, to dispose of it. It was apparently put into 2 bags. One of them was like a special type of bag that holds dead animals that you can buy on Amazon. So there, like I said, there was definitely an element of planning to this. Like someone definitely knew someone was dead and definitely tried to make an effort to dispose of it and get rid of this whole situation. I mean, why would you go out of your way to buy that type of specific bag? It's really interesting stuff. Another big thing that came from the documents is apparently the grand jury is looking at 1 count of murder for David for this whole situation. And, a lot of people have been speculating he did it. I mean, he definitely could have had a motive for it and reasons to do it. But that's, like I said, that's what the grand jury is thinking about. Now, these are not charges. This is not like paperwork that's meant to show that the police are going to charge him with anything. And we really don't know what they're going to say about this. It's just, like I said, I guess according to the paperwork, the grand jury, for now, at least the prosecution, is trying to get it's basically trying to get a count of murder on David. So take that as you will. So yeah, pretty big updates, but also in a lot of ways it's not. It's just, like I said before, it's bits and crumbs here and there. And that's basically been all the updates. It's been radio silent. The grand jury is allegedly still going on. I think it's been going on since November or December. It's been going on for quite a while. It's coming into March right now at the time I'm making this video of 2026. And, we just haven't had any huge updates beyond that. And a lot of people, like I said before, are becoming really frustrated by this case. Steve Fisher, I think he shared new images that basically showed Celeste's last appearances and other never-before-seen photos and stuff like that. And he said something along the lines of he's becoming really frustrated from this case. And, it's been 6 months. There's been no arrests. There's been no indictments. It's getting ridiculous. And he said that maybe the police doesn't have enough circumstantial evidence. Maybe they just don't have a strong enough case to charge him. And I think that's a very real possibility. And a lot of people have been expressing similar feelings. For my personal thoughts on it, I am getting quite frustrated. It has been 6 months, and I get it. The police are doing their work. They're trying to make a case. But I personally think, and I've seen other cases, it's like, if the police had anything strong on this guy, they would have arrested him by now. I do genuinely think, in Steve Fisher's words, I do think that maybe they just don't have enough evidence in this case to charge anyone. I mean, I find it really fascinating that instead of just directly charging someone, and like I said, that kind of exudes confidence, they decide to do a grand jury, which is, like I said, that's a whole thing just to see if you can bring charges and do something, right? I find it really fascinating that, I find it really fascinating that, that nothing has happened with this case. I do think there's definitely an element of truth there, that the police probably don't have enough evidence to support this. And, I think at some point it's going to kind of come to a head. I think at some point we need to hear something from the grand jury. If they don't have enough evidence to indict someone, if they don't have a strong enough case here, they need to, they need to just say that publicly, just like Steve Fisher said. So, yeah, I'm personally getting a bit frustrated with this case. I understand all these things take time, and this might be just a matter of fact they just don't have enough strong evidence linking to this guy. But I will be shocked if they can't get him on murder. They need to at least get him on, PDF crimes. I will be quite surprised that nothing of those sorts would happen, or at least would be charged. It is kind of crazy. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, a little bit of my frustration about this case. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these videos. If y'all want me to talk about any other interesting cold cases like the Dick and Reiner stuff or Epstein stuff, definitely let me know. But yeah, guys, I'm just really frustrated about this whole situation. Hopefully we get some kind of resolution soon. But yeah, my thoughts on the updates in this whole situation. And yeah, just really frustrated. Rest in peace, obviously, to the victim, and condolences to the family. Peace, y'all.